Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and
It's Friday, Jack. We made it through the week again, and of course, down right now behind in the our I don't know if it's called the green room in podcasting, but he's down there. He's ready to come on. Keith Angle, who comes on with us every Friday. We'll bring him up now because we can get right into some college stuff almost right away. But to remind everybody, if you're going to use SeatGeek, use NSS promo code when you go in, and that way you're going to get money off your first buy. Then use it when you go out. When you come back, you'll continue to get great deals on the tickets, best in sports and best in music concerts. Good morning, everyone. Keith, glad to have you. Jack and me are looking forward to talk a little college with you. And, of course, we got to start out with Notre Dame and Penn State.
Good morning, guys. Listen, before we go there, I want to talk about your green room. My green room, we have beverages, we have, little snacks, shrimp. Here I come in, I got nothing. So I just want to point that out.
Keith, you gotta look in the cupboards. I think Jack has some old stuff in there, and I got some cheese to go with whatever you need. So you got that.
The green room, that's for selections. I hang on every word Keith says about college football, except when it comes to the quarterbacks coming out. I kind of detour to you, Mac,
Okay.
Because Keith, advised us on Will Levis, So, okay. But Keith, what a game that was yesterday. What a game.
Great game last night. A lot of fun. Again, some penalties, but you can't blame referees. I think they made the right calls pretty much all night long. Where they needed to be made. Both teams made a couple of mistakes, and Penn State made the mistake where it mattered the most. At the end of the game, where Drew threw a pass he never should have thrown. And that game would have gone to overtime. But Notre Dame, I'll tell you what, Riley Leonard's one of the toughest guys I've seen in college football play this year alone. I won't compare him to other guys in the past, but this kid is big. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's enthusiastic. He gives this team a lift. Notre Dame was struggling. Penn State was controlling the line of scrimmage in the first half of this game. And they weren't putting a lot of points on the board, but they were running the football well. Their defense was just stifling Notre Dame's offense. They made some adjustments at halftime, which really made a big difference. Both teams did, actually. And Riley Leonard coming back after being knocked out of the first half, I think gave this team a big lift as well. Exciting football game. I mean, back and forth, and it was fun to watch. That's why I still, with all the crap that goes on around college football, that's why I still love college football.
And it seemed to me that Penn State defensive front was just overpowering Notre Dame's offensive line. And how Notre Dame managed to win this game. I mean, I just can't see it, but they found a way.
I think they made some little, blocking assignment adjustments at halftime, and you saw some holes open up that weren't there. And Notre Dame, if you noticed, I think ran more north and south in the second half than they did in the first half. They tried to get too cute. You saw a lot of third and short. Riley Leonard's running the football every single time, and they just couldn't stop that. Love banged up, his numbers don't look great. He had one of the best touchdown runs I've seen all year for about 3 yards out. He took like 4 guys into the end zone with him. Notre Dame just seemed like they had, they had the luck of the Irish last night, I guess. And but luck is a manifest. You manifest your own luck, I think, in life a lot of times, right? It's a residue of good design, to use one more cliche. And I'll tell you what, I think this team also is a reflection of Marcus Freeman and Marcus Freeman's development as a coach. He's cool over there. He's calm. He gets a call he doesn't agree with. He's kind of laughing and joking with the referee. I think this team plays looser because of the way Marcus Freeman is on the sideline. As compared,
he's like one of the guys. I don't know, Mac, whether you get this feeling, and Keith, but you get the feeling there's no coach that's more liked than Marcus Freeman. Just everything about him, you look at him, you watch him, you just like the guy.
Agree 100%, and I think that's the difference. And these 4 coaches in this Final Four all have something to prove, all of them. And it's a very interesting dynamic. And to watch the difference, I think, between Franklin and Freeman, to your point, Jack, I mean, there was an article in The Athletic this week about, are the Irish likable now? For years, people have rooted against the Irish, right? But because of Marcus Freeman and the things you just talked about, more people are gravitating towards that team in a likable way. So they're fun to watch. And I think he's learned so much. I was on his bandwagon for 3 years and defended him on my shows for people that were saying he wasn't ready for this job. And I said, give him time to grow, give him time to grow. And after the Northern Illinois game, I was jumping off that bandwagon. But I think that he learned a lot that day, made adjustments they needed to make, and here they are in one game away from the national championship.
Well, Notre Dame, I think more people like them now because they're underdogs now. Right? They're not on top of the heat. Everybody loves an underdog. Listen, Notre Dame's defense has a way of creating turnovers. They remind me a lot of maybe Minnesota's defense in the NFL. They're going to get an interception. They're going to get that fumble. That's how they beat Georgia. Let's be honest. They didn't go down and stomp Georgia. They got all the breaks. They made the breaks. They got the fumbles. They got the interceptions. Penn State's quarterback was his sophomore. I think he's young. I think he made a bad throw and he's trying to make a play. Being a sophomore, he'll be back again. But
I think he's a junior. By the way, he may go. He was talking about going to the NFL draft after last night's performance. I think he might better stay at Penn State.
That's not a good idea. I thought he was a sophomore.
A lot of talk yesterday, Mac, about him being the 3rd best quarterback in the draft.
Well, he is. That's a terrible draft, Keith. But anyway,
he should stay. For sure.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And same thing with Riley. Riley's not going to be an NFL quarterback either.
No, not at any point. He's an efficient field general, right? And to use an old school term about the NFL quarterback or quarterbacks in general, he's like an old school field general out there. His numbers don't look pretty at the end of the day, but he comes out and they win games, and he's tough, man. He had a decent day throwing the football, a couple bad interceptions, but he had a really good day. I think he's a good leader. Teams need leaders. We talk about it all the time, right?
Speaking of leaders, Keith, James Franklin, how much discontent is there with him? Once again, we're going to hear he can't win the big one. He can't get over the top. Is he indirectly on the hot seat? Now, his job's not in jeopardy right now, but if Penn State is so-so next year, then is he going to be on the hot seat?
Yes, but there's a huge buyout to be considered, right? Usually this doesn't matter because these alums have lots of money to buy these guys out, but he's another guy going to cost them $60 million-ish, depending on how soon they get rid of him. If it's next year, $50-60 million to pay him to go away. That's not chump change, right? And I don't know. Yes, there should be a lot of discontent. He still hasn't beaten, as far as I know, a big top 5, 10, even top 10 team in a big game. I'm not counting Boise State. I'm not no disrespect to Boise State and SMU. They're not Notre Dame. They're not Ohio State and Michigan and all these other teams that James Franklin can't seem to beat. I think it's teams again. I think teams will play with a lot. They pull a lot of energy or negative energy from their coach, I think. And I think you watch Penn State late in this game. I watched Alar on the bench while Notre Dame had the ball, and after they had after Penn State had gone ahead and Notre Dame started to drive, and his body language on the bench is like, he's in a panic over there, and they're ahead. And I think that's James Franklin. I think that oozes off of him. Same thing with Ryan Day a little bit in Ohio State. So there will be heat on James Franklin, but maybe Penn State's happy to win, 12 games a year and get to a playoff, and they're happy. I don't know. I wouldn't be if I'm a Penn State alum.
Penn State, of course, they're a big university, but I mean, if you're going to compare them to Ohio State, even Michigan, Keith, I don't know if they're big as these two schools. I know they're not big as some of the SEC schools. They're just a lunch bucket team. They're going to come in there. They're going to play hard. They're probably going to lose some close games like they have. Listen. How much more can you do with Penn State? When they had Saquon Barkley, they couldn't win the national championship. I mean, they haven't won a national championship in years, and they've had some really good players.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think they've won. Maybe they haven't. It's been since 1988 since Notre Dame won. I don't know. I don't think Penn State's won one in that time frame either. No. And so it's a little bit longer, probably mid 80s maybe. But they always have some talent, but they don't have the same talent up and down the roster that the Ohio States have. They don't. I mean, they probably match up with Notre Dame today, but recruiting in today's NCAA is different, right? They don't dominate and just get everybody from the East because you don't keep teams in their regions anymore. Kids will go play anywhere. And in the Big Ten, you got teams coming in your backyard to take kids away from you. So
yeah, big time. J Train chimes in, says, love him or not, James Franklin is safe. He came in in one interception of going to national championship. He's come in with one play of beating a lot of teams. You got to win.
James, no disrespect, but losses matter, and it doesn't matter whether you lost by 1 or you lost by 50. That's a bad loss, and that's what they're going to look at.
So good for Notre Dame. They go on to play the national championship against either Ohio State or Texas. Texas was the team, I think, in the beginning of the year. Everybody was like, this is a team that's going to do it. They don't fade, but they're not playing what they like they were in the beginning. Ohio State, on the other hand, Keith, has come up and is probably the hottest team in the league, and not counting Notre Dame. Ohio State really is dominating the teams they're playing lately. I like Ohio State. Some people still like Texas here.
Well, some people are always going to like that. I mean, Texas is loaded with talent. I mean, they're as talented up and down the field as Ohio State is, I would say. We talked about it here, I think, last week. They don't put 60 minutes together. It's a very talented team that seems to have their moments where they just disappear. I mean, against Arizona State, they should have put that game away in the second quarter anyway, and they just didn't keep the foot on the gas or the foot on their throat, however you want to phrase it, and they let Arizona State back in that game. Another coach with a lot to prove, Steve Scarcasian, great recruiter, has had a very checkered career, well documented what went on with him after he left Washington and went to USC, and had some issues off the playing field. Rehabilitate himself, one of those guys who rehabilitate himself under Nick Saban and his staff, and has done really a really good job at Texas, except for winning national championships. And Ryan Day has his own issues. As good as Ohio State has looked the last few weeks, and they look like they have the momentum, you've seen it with this Ohio State team over the years. Though they'll throw up a stinker when you least expect it. They haven't been terribly consistent. They get off to a strong start like they got off the last 2 weeks That's a key, I think, for Ohio State tonight. I do like them to win this game, quite frankly. But Texas certainly could win.
Keith, does Quinn Ewers possibly be given a short leash? Let's say we're early in the second quarter and Ohio State is up 14-0 and Texas really hasn't moved the ball. Do they go to Arch Manning? Because realistically, this is Quinn Ewers' last year as the Texas starting quarterback. So even though I'm sure they're concerned about his feelings, not to the point looking into the future.
This is definitely his last year with Texas. Whether he goes into the draft or the $6 million the transfer rumors are true, whatever's true, he's probably not going to be back here. It's his team. It would take great chutzpah to pull him, but we've seen coaches who have those type of cojones, if you will. One, Nick Saban did it in a national championship game when he put Tua in and benched Hurts. So it's happened. I think Arch Manning's the best quarterback on that roster and has been, but it's kind of he's waiting his turn. It could happen. I doubt it based on the history that Scorsese has shown. He might put him in there for a series maybe to change things up because Arch can run the ball a little bit more than Ewers. So you might see some change up, but I just, based on Scorsese's history, I'm not sure that he's willing to take that risk and take that moment away from Cam Ewers unless he really stinks or his ankle starts to bother him again. I mean, there could be circumstances, but just pulling him, unless he's horrible, no.
Well, let me put it another way. Which team would have a better chance at coming from behind? I gave you a scenario. They're down a couple of touchdowns. Who has more firepower to come from behind, Ohio State or Texas?
I think Ohio State. If Will Howard's playing well, Will Howard is really good. He's been very inconsistent at Ohio State. I was really all for this move, and it's turned out they're playing to get into the national championship game. So it's not like it's not worked out. There's been a lot of criticism of Will Howard through the course of the year. He played his best 2 games of the year, the last 2 games, though, his best game of the year against Tennessee, probably. And I think they have, because they're a wide receiver university right now. They got wide receivers coming out of every crevice you can find. And when you have that type of firepower, if your quarterback gets hot, then you got a great chance to come back from any deficit.
See, I don't know if, I don't know what Arch Manning is yet. I mean, I seen him play something. He looks okay. He doesn't have experience, and you're going to put him in a big game like this. I don't think that would be a good move. Texas is a running team. They got to run the ball against Ohio State. If they can't run the ball against Ohio State, they're in a lot of trouble. Ohio State has a great, as you said, wide receiver core. They have a good running game too, and a great defense. Texas has a good defense also. I just think, Keith, if Texas can't run the ball, Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning ain't going to win that game for them. They got to control that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think Ohio State would have a better chance to come back, is if you make Quinn Ewers throw 3 downs, and you're eventually going to get to him. He gets rattled sometimes, and you get in his face like a lot of quarterbacks do. I always laugh when I said, Tom Brady, well, hit him in the face a couple of times and he'll just come unglued. Well, most quarterbacks come unglued a little bit.
Definitely.
But you're right. I think if this game is if they rely on the passing game, they will be in trouble, and they need their defense to control
big time
the Ohio State offense a little bit and not put them in that position.
Big time. Frank Laterzo chimes in.
Who hates Ohio State, has been picking Ohio State all through this playoff.
Frank is I don't know what's wrong with Frank.
Frank feels Ohio State is like the Mike Tyson, of boxing.
Yes. Well, maybe Notre Dame is the Holyfield. Who knows?
I'll give Frank this.
Frank, oh yeah, good comparison, Mac. I like that.
I have followed his posts about the college football, and when he's popped into my college football show from time to time over the years, and Frank's a pretty good prognosticator when it comes to college football games. He's pretty good, and he hates Ohio State. That's what I'm laughing is he's putting all his money on Ohio State all through this tournament. So
yes. So we'll see what happens. I think Ohio State wins in the end. I think it's Notre Dame versus Ohio State, and I hope Notre Dame is ready because Ohio State will be.
Notre Dame, as much as I like Notre Dame and have ulterior motives here, they will need to play a perfect game to beat Ohio State.
No, in other words, if Notre Dame played Ohio State, it would be kind of a replay of long ago in college basketball of Villanova and Georgetown. Would you compare it to that?
That's close. I mean, yeah, that's a good comparison. The talent level is certainly comparable for sure.
Yeah.
At this point, I think Notre Dame has a coaching edge in that matchup or either matchup right now. Marcus Freeman has really developed in the last 2-3 months since that Northern Illinois game. A lot, but again, not enough to say that alone will be the difference. They're going to have to play a perfect game. I think that analogy is pretty good. Yeah.
They're gonna have to turn the ball over against Ohio State if it's Ohio State. They haven't got by Texas yet.
No.
The University of Georgia quarterback Carson Beck is not going into the draft like he said. He's going into the portal. He's smart to stay in college. Just stay in college, make as much money as you can, and you'll be all set. Don't be trying to come into the NFL.
He can still go to the draft for X amount. He's got to whatever date to actually pull all the way out, but he's in the portal. I've been trying to get information in this, and I got to look closer today because I looked quick yesterday. There's something called a no contact part of the portal. I don't know whether teams can't contact them. He can reach out to them. I'm not sure what it is. I got to do a little more research on that. It's unlikely he'll return to Georgia in any event because they thought he was gone and they've already reallocated the NIL money. There's not going to be money there for him, basically. And I think they're happy to move on from that Carson Beck era, quite frankly. He is smart to move on, find a place where he can, if he can throw. He can't even throw probably till spring practices because of the surgery he just had. So he's a great unknown, and it's going to be a reach probably for somebody to give him a lot of money. But, there's teams out there that might be looking for somebody like Syracuse caught lightning in a bottle getting Kent McCord. Sorry, he was on Adam 12. He wasn't a quarterback.
Yeah, but he did a great job.
Kyle
he did
McCord.
a great job at Adam 12, especially said one out of 12. Yeah,
I do that all the time.
If Carson Beck came out, he was projected before the season began to go number one and go high number one as well. Some people thought he might even be the first player taken. As he slipped to the point where he's like a fourth round draft choice.
He's a day 3 pick, whether it's fourth or fifth round right now. So he's making the right decision because there's the one guy who's lost millions of dollars this year. And again, it's not all his fault. That team wasn't as good. He made some bad decisions and his numbers weren't as good and the team wasn't as good. So he gets hurt because of it.
Yeah.
And now the injury on top of it just makes it even worse. So.
Yeah, injured or not injured, he's not gonna. You just look at him, Keith. You think you can too. You can look at what they're always in the shotgun. They're always in spread formations. They're not throwing the ball like they're supposed to throw the ball. They're not taking the underneath. There's certain things that a quarterback has to be able to do to be in the NFL. Some got to, even if you got to wait a couple of years, at least you got to have something going for you. And some
look at something as simple as you just kind of alluded to a little bit. For a lot of these quarterbacks, something as simple as taking the snap from center is something none of them have ever done until they get to the NFL, and it's a different. It's a learning experience for them. So it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is.
It's huge.
And again, I never thought he was. This is a weak quarterback class for sure.
Very.
None of these guys would have gone before who was the last quarterback in the first round? Bo Nix, I think. None of them would have gone before Bo Nix or any of those guys last year. And I never thought he was, a number 1 or number 10, top 10 type pick.
No. They're doing the shotgun bet in high school now. They're not even doing it in high school.
That's why I say a lot of these kids get to the NFL have never lined up behind center.
Yes.
Under.
And, right. Behind, under, around. They're not even close to the center. They're way back. Anyway, Keith, you got like 6 more minutes. You want to touch on LA, the Chargers in Houston with us? We're gonna kind of preview the Chargers.
Stay for a little bit. Yeah,
okay,
sure.
So listen, Herbert versus Stroud. All right, if you're gonna go quarterback on the offense to the other quarterback on the other offense, I would give Herbert the advantage there, right? Even though Stroud had a great year last year, I think Herbert's more experienced. He's starting to throw better. Maybe the offense is just a little bit better than Houston. In fact, their offense is ranked 22nd in the league, so their offense has fallen out a lot.
I would agree. The experience makes a difference. Although Herbert doesn't have a ton of experience in the playoffs, and one wasn't so great when they blew a big lead against Jacksonville. But I think he won't be asked to do as much as Stroud. I think that's part of the problem Stroud's had to do this year. I think they've asked him to do maybe too much, and it's caused him to make some bad decisions where he didn't last year. He managed games more than he had to go out there and win games. They haven't asked Herbert, who's a better, I think, as you said, more experience, and you can ask him to do more. They've asked him to do very little as far as going out to win football games, right? Just control the football, don't turn it over, find a way to get points on the board, field goals, whatever. Obviously, you want touchdowns, and let our defense take care of the rest. So I think that's been a big difference, and I think that's going to be a difference in this game. I think the Chargers win this game on the road.
It's the question of which Houston Texans team it shows up. The team of the second half of the season didn't play well, is going to lose. Did they straighten out a bit the final game of the regular season? I know it was the Tennessee Titans they beat, and it wasn't really a dominating performance when you win 23-14. But if the Texans have straightened out and they're the type of team that they were earlier in the year, the type of team they were last year and projected to be, they're going to be hard to beat.
They will.
They went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago, okay, and lost a tough game.
I agree. They lost a couple of tough games. They lost a game to the Lions they never should have lost. They were in control of that football game for 3 quarters. But they find ways to lose, and that's what you can't do, obviously, especially in the playoffs. And I've been waiting the whole second half of the season. We've had different conversations at different times. What team do you think who we're not thinking about right now could gel? And I kept waiting for Texas to gel, and I don't know if one game – and again, those starters, I think, played a half, if I'm not mistaken. I think Stroud played a half that game, and they played better. But I'd like to see 2 or 3 of those games in a row going into the playoffs and not one. So there's a possibility, Jack, they've righted the ship a little bit. But I didn't think Diggs was going to be as big a loss. It's a bigger loss now that you've also lost Tank Dell as well. Their receiver core is really decimated. You've only got Collins, who's been banged up a lot himself this year. I think if they're gonna win this game, they need a lot of Joe Mixon and a lot of third and shorts and not third and longs. They're gonna lose this game if it's.
Well, I know Mac doesn't subscribe to this theory, but a lot of times I mention to Mac which team needs to win more. Who is it more important to? The Chargers could lose this game, and the season's been a success no matter what. Yeah. Houston loses this game, the season hasn't been a success.
But I don't think it's a devastating loss, given the injury situation and whatnot. It's their second year. A lot of teams in their position, young teams, young coaches, will take a step back after taking a step forward. And it isn't like they regressed to 4 or 5 wins. They still made the playoffs. So, yes, it would be a worse loss, I think, for the Texans, but I don't think a devastating one.
Me either. Keith, we'll let you get out of here. Keith's got an interview with who today, Keith?
I have Tony Collins, former New England Patriot running back, on the show today. We're going to have a great conversation about his time there and his struggles, his personal struggles, which he's turned into a message. He's got a book actually titled, I believe, Broken Roads, Turning My Mess into a Message. So it's really inspirational book. We'll talk a lot about that as well.
There's a lot of guys that go down bad roads and end up coming out writing books and going to classes and having kind of things. They go out and talk to people.
They help a lot of other people. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, Keith, thanks for stopping in. We'll see you on Sunday, the big football show.
Have a good Friday, guys. Enjoy tonight's game.
Definitely will. There you go, folks. Keith Angle from TGI Sports. We'll be talking to Tony Collins, running back. I remember him from the Patriots. He was NFL running back. I want to get back to the Chargers, Jack, with you, and Houston. What is Jim Harbaugh? They say, well, he's a quarterback coach. He played quarterback. He was an offensive coordinator somewhat with the Bears. He works well with down in college. He worked with McCarthy. I think Jim Harbaugh is a lot more than that, Jack. I think he's defensive, offensive, special. I think he's just a very good head coach that went to the Super Bowl. Probably will end up eventually going to the Super Bowl again. I don't know if he'll win it or not. I'm just saying chances are he will, because he's got that thing with him. He's got that it. He's a little nutty, but he's got that it with the players and coaching.
He's a terrific coach. He's a winner. He's a difference maker. Look what he did with the 49ers. He had a good starting quarterback in Alex Smith, and the players all rallied around Alex Smith. They all liked him. Alex Smith did a heck of a job. Yet Jim Harbaugh had the guts to replace him with Colin Kaepernick because he thought Kaepernick had a little more upside to take the team to the Super Bowl, which happened. Okay, and then they won the mix the following year as well, came a little short of making it to the Super Bowl. And then he goes to Michigan. It took him a number of years, but eventually they won a national championship. His quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, was a first-round draft choice. And in large part, McCarthy was a system quarterback, a part of Jim Harbaugh's system. And now he comes to the Chargers. His success is undeniable. He took a team that picked 5th overall in the draft. He didn't go for the glamour player in a Malik Neighbors when they picked. He went with Joe Alt, an offensive lineman from Notre Dame, because that's how he likes to build his team.
Alt is having an all-pro year. Just to let everybody know out there, this rookie is unbelievable over there. If you watch any of the video for him, you watch him against Houston. I mean, he dominates the defense. Great pick for the Chargers, and that's what they wanted to do, right? They wanted to pound the ball in the beginning. And don't think that Justin Herbert ain't going to throw the ball, folks. The dude knows how to throw the ball. And, I don't care if he's only got 1 or 2 wide receivers. I'm telling you, this guy's going to throw a touchdown and win a game, maybe against Houston. I don't know how good Houston is right now, Jack. I know they got a good defensive coach. Their defense, like I said, has is ranked 6th. So it's in the league. It's a good defense. But the offense is the problem. And
you don't want to go into the playoffs bleeding. You have to stop the bleeding. Did the Texans just put a Band-Aid on it? It was the Tennessee Titans they beat last week. I mean, let's face it, the Tennessee Titans, who probably weren't going all out as far as their coaching staff went, as far as winning the game. At least their fan base, you have to believe, didn't mind losing the game because now they have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But did the Texans straighten things out? Are they really ready to go? I was listening to D'Amico Ryan's post-game speech to the team. Well, the Chargers come to our house now. Since when has Houston been an intimidating place to play at? He says they're coming to their house now. But D'Amico Ryan is a defensive coach. And maybe, they are going to get straightened out, for this week, because the playoffs, some teams can turn on a switch on and off. For the most part, they can. But maybe that's the case with Houston, because Houston knew they were going to go into the playoffs. They didn't have to win those late season games because they won such a weak division. And knowing you're going to get into the playoffs, maybe the players were mentally gearing for the playoffs all along. It's an intriguing game. Most people are picking the Chargers. The Chargers are favored by 3 points. I mean, I like Houston in the game, by the way. But part of it is stubbornness because I picked the Texans to go to the Super Bowl before the year started. Now, I hate to jump off the bandwagon, Matt. I rarely jump off the bandwagon. If C.J. Stroud got injured, I jump off the bandwagon. same with the Packers. If Jordan Love is injured, can't play, you jump off the bandwagon. But otherwise, I believe you kind of stick it out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I agree with you. The other game, Baltimore is giving Pittsburgh 10 points. It's dropped a little bit since we took the spreads at 10. I think it went down to 9.5 and 9.
Dave Flowers is out, the Raven wide receiver, man.
I was just going to say, Jack, how much does that affect Baltimore?
It does mean something. I don't want to dismiss it, completely.
Right.
Even though they have other weapons, because Dave Flowers, he's a very, very good player, and it gives Lamar Jackson one less weapon.
Right.
You would think that the Ravens would be running the ball a lot with Derrick Henry anyway. But can Pittsburgh turn around their fortunes? They've been floundering themselves. But who do you have a lot more faith in? The Raven offense or the Steeler, offense?
Yeah, listen, the Ravens offense is number 1 in the league, Jack, right now, ranked.
Exactly.
Pittsburgh's offense is 16. They're halfway down there.
And it doesn't seem like they're even a number 16.
Yeah, they've
believe Russell Wilson and Pickens all of a sudden going to be connecting, Najee Harris and all with the Steeler running game hasn't quite, taken off. And I think the Ravens win handily with room to spare. I don't look for a nail bite. I don't look for a one-score game. I look for the Ravens to win the game decisively. And then I think there's going to be a lot of discontent in Pittsburgh. And there's going to be a Mike Tomlin fatigue in Pittsburgh. I think it's already begun, and it's been there a couple of years. He continues to win and take teams to the playoffs, but they get bumped immediately. And I think the fans in Pittsburgh, there's going to be some talk about a change. It kind of happened years ago with Don Shula in Miami. Shula never stopped winning.
Yeah. People
forget that. Yeah. But the fans of Miami didn't like the idea of going 9-7 and losing in the first round of the playoffs.
Let me put it this way. If I'm Pittsburgh, right, and no more Flowers. Of course, you got to stop the run with Derrick Henry. But really, the tight end is their other weapon, right? I mean, they do have other receivers. But the big tight end is who don't you double him or sway the coverage towards him? And on third downs, it does, as you said, Jay Flowers not playing does limit him. He not only catches the ball, he comes around and reverses and sweeps. That's a big playmaker for him losing. And of course, we have what Jackson does in the playoffs. So it's a rivalry game, Jack. It's a division game. Maybe Fields gets in there and runs the ball a little bit too. Not just Najee Harris. Maybe they put him in there and on second down, let him run with the ball too. I don't know. Listen, I don't know if Baltimore's going to dominate. I picked them -10, but I got second thoughts. I don't know. Maybe Pittsburgh can hang with them.
Justin Fields might get in the play now and then to run the ball. I wouldn't think he would be a major factor in the game. But you mentioned the running game. Quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson can do what he did early in the year, what he did last year, what he's done in past years. He can run with the ball if need be. If they're struggling a little bit on offense and the passing game is struggling, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I joked around in the past saying the best running back in the NFL is Lamar Jackson. No one's better running the ball, but he runs from the quarterback position.
Right.
So they have that extra dimension. And Russell Wilson, even though he could use his legs, he's going to have to beat you with his arm at some point. And I have a lot less confidence in Russell Wilson sustaining, a good game than I do in Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a major asset for the Ravens. Can you really say the same about Russell Wilson as the Steeler quarterback?
No, you can't. And Pittsburgh's defense was a type of defense that got turnovers, right? Strip sacks, interceptions, and they haven't done that lately. And that's
what
I think.
They lost their edge. Did they get it back? We talk about the Texans. Can the Texans get their edge back? Can the Steelers defense be what they were early in the year? Can they get that edge back? It's been a long time since we've seen the Steelers defense show up. What leads us to believe they're going to turn the switch on for the playoffs. They needed to show up in these late season games, and they weren't the defense that we hoped they'd be. So what makes us think they're going to be that, tomorrow against the Ravens?
I agree. Now, we talk about Mike Tomlin being one of the great. I mean, he's going to Hall of Fame. Mike Tomlin is definitely going to Hall of Fame. John Harbaugh has won more Super Bowls than Mike Tomlin, right? Am I saying it right?
No, they each won one Super Bowl. No, they each won one Super Bowl.
Okay, yes.
Tomlin's
The other one,
Tomlin's gone to 2, Harbaugh's gone to 1. But John Harbaugh has been an outstanding coach because he usually has the Ravens in the mix.
Right. So,
year after year.
They're both very great coaches. Great coaches. I mean, yeah, John Harbaugh there was that guy from Minnesota who took over the Ravens. The Ravens won that first Super Bowl. So Cincinnati, the Bengals file a petition to the NFL against KC for tanking the last game because
some fans filed a petition, which is
the head coach has been very outspoken in Cincinnati. Has been very outspoken about this.
He's been outspoken. Zach Taylor, if he did a better job, he wouldn't have to problem. He went 9-8. His team went 9-8. Partly because of the miserable coaching job he did early in the year. The Chiefs should file a counter petition why he did such a poor job, why he didn't give them more of a challenge, why he didn't elevate his team. Or they went 9-8.
While I agree with that, what I don't agree with is not showing up to play that last game against the Broncos.
They have no obligation. Who did the Chiefs have an obligation to? They had an obligation to themselves.
Let me finish. They have an obligation to the NFL. To the NFL, the integrity of the NFL alone.
Don't have obligation to get ready for the playoff.
And if they're not going to play to win the game, which Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. If you're not going to play to win a game, forfeit. Just tell the NFL, tell the Broncos, you won the game. We don't even want to play because we're not going to even try. We're going to put our third stringers or taxi or whatever they are, practice squad players in there, and we're just going to throw them, and you can kick our ass 38-0.
Philadelphia did that with the Giants. Other teams did the same thing that
Philadelphia beat the Giants. Philadelphia beat the Giants, Jack. They didn't get robbed by the Giants.
Denver's a much better team than the Giants. If the Chiefs are playing the Giants, maybe the Chiefs win that game. Who knows?
And Denver had to win the game to get in the Super Bowl, and affected them losing tank. Not only affected the Bengals, but affected Miami too.
Mac, Kansas City is flying to Denver. Their flight gets delayed because of miserable weather. Mechanical difficulties, so they're delayed, they're inconvenienced, they're harassed for a meaningless game to them. And they have to go to Denver. They're human. They cannot possibly be psyched and up for a game like that. They want to rest their guys, have them ready for the playoffs. That's all they care about.
That's what I'm saying, Jack. I'm not disagreeing Cincinnati should have played better. But there are teams that come in at the end of the year and end up in the playoffs. You would agree with that, right? Would you agree with that? That there are teams.
Cincinnati didn't get it done.
So listen. They won their last 5 games, last 4 games. They did make a run at the end. All I'm saying, Jack, is if you're not going to play the game, why put anybody out on the field? Just let the NFL know.
But you have to play the game, Mac.
If you're going to play the game, are you going to play the game? Are you going to play the game to win or to lose? That's all I'm asking.
Mac, with that kind of attitude, Mac.
Yes.
Exhibition games, you should play your starters. Once you're on the field, even if it's an exhibition game, even though it's preseason, play your first teams, playing the whole game, go all out to win. Okay?
Well, they used to. Jack. They used to have 4 preseason games, and they used to play the starters quite a bit. They did. That's the way it was. Yeah. So I mean, you're not saying anything new. I mean, that's the way it used to be. So all I'm saying, listen, Jack. They're crying about betting, influencing the games. They're crying about the games are scripted. Kansas City's supposed to be in the Super Bowl. They're saying all this stuff is reeling around the NFL right now. When this happens, it just looks fishy, man. It looks like, and I'm not saying, listen, I think KC is smart because Cincinnati beats their ass when they play them. So let Denver win. That's a smart move, right? I mean,
Max, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I would be laughing at Cincinnati, the franchise in their city. They've made it personal against the Chiefs in the past. The mayor of Cincinnati called Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead Stadium, but then the Chiefs, of course, beat the Bengals after that and restored order completely. Okay? And Jamar Chase is taking chances to badmouth the Chiefs. Screw them. Screw the Bengals. They played the Chiefs. And let me finish. They played them early in the season, and the Chiefs won the game.
So
the Bengals won that game. This wouldn't even be a discussion. The Bengals lost to the New England Patriots, of all people, in their first game of the year. Give me a break. They win that game. They were in the playoffs. They got what they deserved. Let me finish up. Zach Taylor, to me, would be on the hot seat, okay? He's a whiner. He's a crier about his team losing. If he had his team playing better, this wouldn't have been a problem. He had a 9-8 team. A team with all that talent and potential went 9-8 on the season. I say for him to complain that he got screwed, his coaching screwed the Cincinnati Bengals.
Listen, I know the only quarterback in the playoffs that has beaten Patrick Mahomes is Joe Burrows in the Cincinnati Bengals.
Tom Brady beat him in the Super Bowl.
I'm not talking about Tom Brady. I'm talking about the AFC. AFC, Joe Burrows is the guy. Now, Joe Burrows is just a good quarterback as
game, but Patrick Mahomes is beating Joe Burrow more than Joe Burrow's beating him.
I don't think that's right, Jack. I don't think that's right. I think, in fact, I know that's not right. I know Cincinnati Bengals have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs more than Kansas City Chiefs have beaten the Bengals.
Put it this way. Even if the Chiefs, hypothetically, even had they tried, gone all out to win the game, played their starters, odds are they would have lost to Denver. They're playing at Denver. They're traveling to Denver in bad weather. Denver needs the game. And if I'm the Chiefs, let me tell you something. Andy Reid would have been a complete idiot if he played all his starters the whole game and went all out to beat the Denver Broncos. That wouldn't be the sign of a good coach in a meaningless game, going all out in that sense.
So you're saying Bill Belichick, when he went for the perfect season, was an idiot for playing all his starters?
It was a perfect season.
Who cares? He should have rested it. He should have rested. Maybe if he rested his players
to win the game against Denver, they would have gone all out if they won.
Maybe if he rested his players, they would have won the Super Bowl.
Possibly, that's absolutely correct. But when you're locked into an unbeaten season, you kind of should go for it. It's like a pitcher with a high pitch count. After 7-8 innings, he has a perfect game going. You kind of let him ride it out because, you have to in that circumstance when you have a chance at perfection. But the Chiefs had one loss. The game would not have affected their seeding or anything, and they rested their guys, and they're getting ready for the playoffs. The Chiefs earned it right.
They were getting a rest anyway.
These fans who came up with the petition.
How many weeks do these guys need off? I mean, they're getting a rest anyway. I love debating this topic. I don't know if I even believe what I'm saying, but it sounds right to me. If you're going to play a game, you play to win, and that's just football. And that's the way I feel, Jack. You're not going to change my mind.
In other words, with that theory, Matt, you can never play your marginal players in the preseason because you're so busy trying to win the game. You can only put them up during mop-up time.
preseason doesn't count towards the playoff.
Now you play to win the game. It's a game. Fans are paying their money, Matt. Try to win the game. Go all out.
With my starters and my replacements, I would play to win the game. Even in regular season, I would play to win the game. So, anyway.
Well, let me tell you this. The Chief players who were playing didn't tank it. They just weren't good enough to back up for the Chiefs. But I'm sure they were trying to all do the best that they could. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to lose their jobs next season. They want to look good and leave an impression. And
they did. They
left a bad impression.
The game for the Rams is being moved to Arizona. Of course, there's a lot of wildfires going on there. So there goes their home field advantage, Jack.
The Rams don't have a home field advantage even when they're home.
I mean,
in LA.
I maybe not with the fans, but they, when you're home, you can stay with your family.
Let me tell you, Matt,
let me finish. When you're home field, you don't have to go to a hotel and stay at a hotel and have a curfew. You can stay with your family. You're more relaxed. So there is some kind of advantage to it. You can drive your own car there. There is some kind of advantage, Jack.
Yeah, I understand that. Good point on that. It just shows you how big a game it was last Sunday night, the Vikings and the Lions. Lions have a bye now. They're going to be at home. They're all set, focused, getting ready for the playoffs. The Vikings, as a result of losing the game, not only have to beat a tough Ram team to advance to the next round, but they have to travel all over. They're not in LA. They got to go to Arizona. It's just hectic for them. And even if the Vikings win the game, now they got to come back to Detroit again after going through all that. It's kind of hectic.
Big loss. Big loss.
It was a big loss. Getting that bye is big. It really does mean a lot. And even in the case when the Eagles slipped up and they lost to the Commanders, the Eagles have to win 3 games to go to the Super Bowl. The Lions too, and the Eagles have to beat a tough Packer team, and that's very precarious, that game for the Eagles. But if they do win that game, eventually they're going to probably have to go through Detroit.
Tampa Bay
means a lot.
Even Tampa Bay is not easy to get, Jack. That's going to be anybody plays Tampa Bay. It's going to be a tough game. So even if they go to Tampa Bay before they go,
Commanders in Tampa Bay is going to be an intriguing game. Very intriguing game.
It will be. It will be. It definitely will be. Mike Evans gets his, his 1,000 yards, 11 straight years. Mike Evans, Jack. Nobody talks about this guy really. I mean, I know he went to one Super Bowl with Brady, but really nobody. When you say the greatest wide receivers of all time, no one says Mike Evans. It's Jerry Rice. Randy Moss. But this guy's tied Jerry Rice, guaranteed Hall of Famer. I think if he was like on the Cowboys or a New York team, there'd be a lot more talk about Mike Evans.
Yeah, it reminds me a little of Steve Largent when you talked about the outstanding receivers. No one ever mentioned Steve Largent's name. And you make a great point, Matt. No one mentions Mike Evans when you talk about the great receivers. But when you look at what he's done over his career, it's comparable to the great receivers. He just tied Jerry Rice for, 11 seasons, 1,000 yards gained. He's outstanding. He's been a Buccaneers whole career. And it looked like last season he might possibly move on from the Buccaneers somewhere else. But even the GM said his son's favorite player is Mike Evans. Can you imagine a GM comes home and his teenage son keeps begging him, please sign Mike Evans. You can't let him go. You can't let him go. But look, Mike Evans wanted to come back to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers wanted to keep him. That's what I say about certain players. Certain players should be with one team their whole career. They should be legacy players. Mike Evans should not ever finish out his career somewhere else. He should be a Buccaneer his whole career.
I agree, Jack. I agree. News about teams reaching out to Bill Belichick. I mean, he's got a 1-year contract with North Carolina right now. I don't see him saying, North Carolina, screw you, I'm going to coach in the NFL. Even the Raiders, Tom Brady, supposedly, from what I read, the Raiders have contacted him. I mean, can you imagine Bill Belichick, even if it's after this year, going to work for Tom Brady? That would be pretty interesting.
No, I could see that happening. Brady wouldn't buy it, Belichick. But what gets me, Mac, ignore the landscaping in the back, the noise. I'm sorry about that. Brady, how can he be in the booth for Fox, calling the games? And he's doing a good job, Brady. I enjoy listening to him. He's very clear. He explains the game to us very well. How can he be in charge of the Raiders, picking a coach and, doing the broadcast for Fox?
I don't know, Jack. I don't know. They are letting. I think if it was somebody less than Tom Brady's stature, I think there would be a big what to do right now. But I think because it's Tom Brady, they're kind of letting things slide that they probably shouldn't. Listen, you're going to be involved in the draft. You're going to draft. They said he's going to help draft. He's going to be involved in getting a head coach and a GM or whatever else he's going to do over there. And they won't let him supposedly walk around other people's stadiums or interview certain people. I don't know. I don't understand why Brady would be able to do this. And other people, I don't think Jack would be allowed to do this. If it maybe Peyton Manning, but I don't think if it was, a running back that played 10 years ago that he would be allowed to do this. You know what I mean? Yeah, so anyway, the Ducks are calling Jack. They want to be fed again. I think Jack stands back on the porch and throws bread to him or something because they're always calling him near the end of the show. They know it's the end of the show. So anyway, great debate today. A little bit of basketball news. The only thing I got to say, Cleveland's 33-4. What the hell's going on in Cleveland? I mean, and they're not beating schmuck teams. They're playing some pretty good teams and putting them away. They just beat, I think, the Thunder. The Knicks, Boston, and Philly are playing today also, folks. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Have a great day. It's Friday night. Stay out of trouble. And, of course, we got Ohio State playing against Texas. I think Ohio State wins. I think a lot of people think that. Bo Crouch does not. He's picking